Let's catch up with the economics editor of The Australian now, Mr Creighton. And he's not Skyping. We're in a real TV studio. That's great. Good to talk to you, Adam. Tell us about public servants. The pay rise in Queensland has been knocked on the head for now, but there's politicians getting pay rises in Victoria. It's always a politically sensitive issue, but when so many people are taking pay cuts or losing their jobs, this is absolutely volatile.
Yeah, look, certainly it's particularly egregious, I think, that the Victorian Premier is looking at a $42,000 pay rise, I think, on the 1st of July, and supposedly that's going to go to charity. But look, I mean, I don't think it should be happening at all, frankly. We've seen this week the Prime Minister's been visibly irritated when he's been asked this question about whether or not there'll be cuts for ministers and senior public servants. I can understand that because, I mean, he, after all, is I think the third highest paid leader in the Western world, actually, on about $550,000. But it's not just the ministers. Of course, the senior executive services of state and federal government, you know, they're all on between $200,000 and $500,000 a year. There's thousands and thousands of these people. I mean, in New South Wales alone, there's 3,200 kind of senior civil servants in that range. And so I really do think that when government basically shuts an economy down and, you know, for understandable reasons, but nevertheless causes a lot of economic heartache, I think it's only reasonable that they also, at least at the upper end, take some sort of pay cut, maybe 20%, 15%. You know, they're certainly the sorts of pay cuts that we've been seeing in the private sector so far. Well,
let's ratchet it back a moment and start with the pay increases. There was a pay increase on the table for public servants in Queensland, and Anastasia Palaszczuk quite rightly said, no, that shouldn't go ahead, not in these times. You can't give a pay rise to public servants. The Victorian politicians have accepted this pay rise but said that they'll give the additional money to charity. Now, that's sort of neither fish nor fowl, is it? They should reject the pay rise rather, because we don't know which charity or how much is given.
Also, yeah, that's right. Who's going to check that? I mean, is there going to be checking? And surely, I mean, it's still also costing the government money too at the end of the day. I mean, there shouldn't be a rise, and I'm pretty sure that you'll see in New South Wales soon there won't be a pay rise there either on 1st of July. I mean, of course, most states kind of increase the salaries of their public servants every year on the 1st of July. It's just automatic. It's the same at the federal level. Pretty much it's been 2% every year for the past few years. The federal government, of course, has also ruled out that 2% increase, but I think that they're probably going to have to go further in coming weeks if the economic slump that we're expecting does actually eventuate. Yeah,
and I think then to go on to your other point about actually getting people to make a salary sacrifice. Now, this is happening in the private sector. Everybody's seen it happening in controversial terms in the sporting codes, but understandable reasons. And so it is going to inflame this debate as to whether, if this just goes on for months and there is continued pain, whether or not those people who have guaranteed, you know, they have that job security that nobody else has, whether they ought not share some of the pain.
Yeah, look, that's right. I think it's going to draw attention to the extraordinarily generous conditions of our senior public servants. I mean, for instance, there was a study in 2016 by the OECD that compared 28 countries, and the secretaries of our departments and the heads of our federal agencies were the highest paid in the world. Actually, they were double the average. So they are extraordinary levels. It's certainly not normal in most Western countries for your average departmental secretary to earn $900,000 a year. That is very unusual. And I mean, it goes all the way down to political staff too. I mean, foreigners are gobsmacked when they learn that, you know, people in their late 20s, early 30s are on $200,000 a year plus as political staffers. I mean, some senior bureaucrats in the US government don't even earn that. So the conditions here really are very generous, and look, if there is a very, very big downturn, it does raise the question of whether it's even affordable in the first place.
Let's talk about the US. So we know the pandemic is creating more problems, more infections there than any other country now. And the economic consequences are kicking in very, very savagely. I think 6 million people registering for unemployment benefits or insurance in the past week or so. Tell us, I mean, this was Donald Trump's great success, was the jobless rate and the way the economy was picking up. Now this has been completely dashed. What are the ramifications going to be for the US and the world?
Well, look, they're going to be extremely bad. I mean, as you suggest, we've never seen such an extraordinary run-up in the jobless rate in the US so suddenly, and that's just the beginning. I've read forecasts saying that it's going to be 22 million people unemployed within months, not just 6. So the economic devastation is extraordinary. You know, one can understand the severe response, of course, of governments there and also governments here, you know, having to shut things down, keep people apart. But I think it is important to keep in mind just you know, the short-term and the long-term economic costs of what's happening. I don't think it's, you know, obvious, as some people argue, that we should, you know, do absolutely everything to flatten the curve, because everything has a cost. And these economic costs are going to last maybe a generation.
Yeah, we've got to be very, very careful to make sure. It's a fine balancing act, but it's all about making sure that the cure is not worse than the disease. It's an old phrase, but it makes a lot of sense. Thanks so much for joining us, Adam.
Thanks, Chris.